Hello. Hi. Welcome again. This is our sixth in a series of social justice panel discussions. And today we're going to talk about respect for parents. We owe our parents so much respect. And now so many parents are facing so many obstacles. And so we just want to take a moment and just respect our parents. And today, my panel guests include the one and only April Carter. Carter is a dynamic leader with over 15 years of experience in the nonprofit sector. She serves as Chief Program Officer at Tennessee Nonprofit Network and co-owner of COO of Amplified Investment, a family-run real estate investment company. She is dedicated to providing affordable, well-maintained housing in her childhood communities, which is much needed. Her sincerity, kindness, and unwavering commitment to making a positive impact on the Memphis community and beyond make her an exceptional leader and inspiring role model. Welcome, April Carter.
Thank you so much, Commissioner Sugarman. I'm so excited to be here.
Thank you so much for your work, and thank you so much for addressing the housing issue in Memphis and Shelby County. Next, we have Brian Harris. Brian Harris has spent the last 23 years developing teams, building and sustaining culture and community engagement, and delivering a world-class experience leading to um, world-class results. Brian is currently a special assistant to Mayor Young and the Director of Youth Services for the City of Memphis. Previously, Brian was CCTE educator in Memphis Shelby County Schools. And for those who don't know, the CCTE program is like the old vocational programs for old schoolers. Before fulfilling his passion for education, Brian worked in senior leadership where he led operations and community affairs, which emphasize youth engagement. And you all do a phenomenal job. And please tell Mayor Young to keep it going on because you all have really embraced our youth. And so thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Thanks, for Commissioner, for having me, and I'll make sure I relay that message to him.
Thank you so much. Next, we have Dr. Stephanie Hill. Dr. Hill has successfully worked in youth development, early childhood education, K-12 schools administration, and post-secondary program implementation. She served as an educator in Maya Angelou Academy at the New Beginnings Youth Development Center in Washington, D.C., then later as Dean of Students, Dean of Operations, and Director of a Boys and Girls Club. She has received numerous awards, including the New Memphis Exemplar Award, the Neil C. Jackson Award from the National Association of Girls and Women in Sports, and the Louise Patterson Award for Academics and Community Involvement from the University of California in Berkeley. Oh my gosh. Welcome, Dr. Hill.
Thank you for having me this evening. I'm delighted to be a part of the panel.
Thank you. And so for the listening audience, I've gotten permission. So we're going to be on a first name basis. Okay. So I don't want anybody sending me any ugly emails or text messages. Okay. You're so disrespectful. Well, I got permission. Okay. First up, the questions for April Carter. April, as CPO of the Tennessee Nonprofit Network, what are the primary challenges that nonprofits in Shelby County face when supporting families in need?
Well, Erica, if you talk to any nonprofit in Shelby County, the very first thing that they're going to say, and probably the last, is access to funding. Funding is critical for all nonprofits, and we're looking at funding from foundation support, corporate investment, as well as individual donors. And so funding is critical. And at Tennessee Nonprofit Network, we try to support nonprofits in building their financial capacity, human capacity to meet those needs. And also, besides funding, having that human capacity is an issue, whether it's volunteers or maintaining staff, and of course, board members. A lot of times, board members are people that we know, people that have made a name for themselves, but not really representative of the community. So nonprofits, they kind of have this battle between, do we get someone on our board that's going to fundraise, or do we get someone on our board that's truly representative of the community that we're serving, that will actually come in and do the work. And of course, we should be able to find a balance with that. And last but not least, the third challenge I would say is just being able to connect families holistically to resources. Organizations may be able to provide food, but if a parent is struggling with transportation and unable to come and pick it up, or if we see oftentimes with utility, the need for utility assistance, if the utilities are off, how are they going to properly store that food? And so nonprofits are dealing with funding issue, staff and human capital capacity, and inability to connect holistically to services.
Okay, you brought some very good points as far as collaboration among the agencies, nonprofits, as well as getting the word out. Because so many times I have families that come to me and they have specific needs, as to your point, transportation or food insecurity, what have you. So how are the nonprofits getting the word out of what each one will provide for families?
But they're getting the word out through collaborations. A lot of the foundations and corporate and investment companies will require organizations to collaborate, come together to provide services. But also nonprofits are doing it themselves. They're partnering with organizations in their communities. The Orange Mound community is a great example of that, where nonprofits come together, they host events, they have listening sessions with the community to see what do they need. And of course, partnering with the education institutions in each community is vital, because school systems, they see it all the time. They have a good eye on the holistic need of each child. So nonprofits have to have a foot on the ground. They have to be in the communities, embedded in the communities, in order to be able to bring everyone together to realize the holistic needs.
Thank you so much. Next, Brian, as Director of Youth Services for the City of Memphis, what are some of the services your office offers to support young people and their families?
Yes, ma'am. So we have a ton of programs we offer for young people, ranging from the age of 13 all the way to 22. And so three areas I focus on in particular, because the larger population in Memphis and Shelby County is between the ages of 8 and 18, which is about 270,000 young people. And so naturally, the bulk of that comes from MSCS, which serves about 110,000 students. So three things our office is focused on is after school time, during school time, and out of school time. So two of our programs, one is called MAP, which is the Memphis Ambassador Program, which has been around for a very long time and dates back 4 administrations. But what have we done differently in this administration? A lot of programs previously were geared towards a GPA requirement of a 3.0 or higher. And of course, we want to continue to reward those high excelling students. But we do know, based on being in the field and working with Dr. Fagans and educators, that the average GPA is well below a 3.0. So one of our new programs under the MAP umbrella, the acronym is BOSS, which stands for Building Out Successful Students. So it's no GPA requirement. And we launched a summer camp this summer, which had over 100 young people involved, which again, that focused on out of school time. And so in the during school time that we're in certain schools. And by the way, this program does pay a stipend. And so you ask the question, how does it help families? We know where we stand as a city when it comes to different poverty levels and people needing a hand up. I don't like to use the term hand out, but hand up.
Right.
And how we do that is through stipend base. And so we reward the young people at all levels based on their participation in the program, which involves grades, attendance, community service, and a parent meeting. Because we want to make sure that the parents are involved. Now, the other program, which everybody knows this one, is Employ, which is our summer intern program. And I'm proud to say that we had a 35% increase in business partner participation this year, year over year. And we also saw about a 60 student increase participants over the previous summer. And what we did differently, we made it very strategic where young people can go in and determine based on our website, it's the first time we've ever done this, on what industry they want to intern in. So if you have a passion for logistics, as opposed to just coming to a forum, we're telling you, hey, Erika, you're going over to work at Baptist Hospital. You know ahead of time who our business partners are, how many slots are available. You can go in and pre-select, and we saw a very positive response by doing that. So those are two of our premier programs we do, in addition to the out of school time, running summer camps. And there's another new camp we have called Elevate 901. And this is done in various zip codes. So we did do one in Westwood this summer. And during fall break, which I believe is October 5th through the 11th, we're going to be in Orange Mound doing a special camp for those young people.
Okay. And I didn't hear my district, Hickory Hill.
Oh, no, Hickory Hill, that is a major one. So
Okay.
when it comes to our programs like MAP, we're in Hickory Hill Community Center with that program. But also when it comes to Elevate, we're going to move that around to different areas.
Okay.
So Hickory Hill is on that list. That's a huge area for Memphis and Shelby County. So we definitely.
That's great. Let me ask you a few more questions. My children participate in employ, so I know all about employ. So do you all still also offer like soft skills like resume writing and things of that nature?
Absolutely. That is huge. And what we've done differently, we hold more classes before the sessions start. And we also offer sessions after it closes. Because again, that is so important, the resume and soft skill building that you talked about.
Yeah.
Because talking to different employers in Memphis, that's one huge gap that they find as employers. Basic soft skills that we all know aren't being taught or reiterated. So we're very big on that component, and it's been very successful.
Okay, great. And so one more thing I want to touch on real quickly, Brian, before I go on to the next one.
Sure.
Maybe two more things. You mentioned also the different aspects, but one thing as a teacher in Tennessee, we cannot talk about, for example, sex education. And Dr. Taylor came before the commission a few weeks ago and stated between the ages, I believe it was 15 and 25, that syphilis in Memphis and Shelby County is up 150%, and HIV 100%. And so we're putting our children, our young people, in harm's way. And I'm just going to ask, is there, for anybody that's up there, you, Brian, Stephanie, or April, are there any types of programs or ways that we can get to these kids to they need to know sex education. They need to know to, use condoms and things like that because they're having sex. The thing the state pushes is abstinence. Well, now look where that's gotten us. So I was just wondering to any of you all, how can we address this with our young people?
Yeah, I'll touch on that briefly. So part of our programs, especially the MAP, which run about 7 months out of the school year, that's something that is part of the curriculum. So we bring in people from the health department, and we're going to take it up higher because one thing about when you're teaching young people, that our city and county is forever changing. Like you just gave statistics that have increased. So we have to make sure that we address that. But what we do on the front end, when we do our orientation with parents, we explain what the curriculum will be. So they know we're going to touch on these subjects, but we're going to have a subject matter expert do it. So we'll be part of that conversation, which is needed.
Okay. And Stephanie, I'm going to move on to you real quickly before I go on. Would anybody else like to address the issue that our young people are facing with STDs in our Memphis and Shelby County? No? Okay. Because, that's something that, as a teacher, I can't really focus on or talk about because of state laws and things like that, but it's so needed. Our young people, they're in harm's way. Okay, Stephanie, as a CAO of juvenile court, what are some of the common misconceptions people have about justice-involved youth?
Thank you for the question, Commissioner Sugarman. I think
Erika?
one of the main misconceptions, Erika, is that number one, I think the primary misconception is the number of youth that are justice involved, which
Mhm.
is less than 1% of all the youth in Shelby County. And I think the other primary misconception is that you can kind of paint all the youth with a broad brush.
Yeah.
And that's not fair to them. It's not accurate. And at the end of the day, our mandate in the statute is rehabilitation. And so we are in this work because as a court, we fully believe in the ability to rehabilitate youth that may have become justice involved. I think on a more nuanced level, I think there's been a misconception that like the majority of justice involved youth are truant youth. Not the case. As
Mm.
far as our youth that come into detention, only about 19% of them are not currently in school. That means the majority of the youth who come in through detention are engaged in school, and of course the majority of our youth don't come in through detention. And so that's a misconception, is that the youth that are justice involved are all truant and not attending school. That is not the case. I think the other misconception is really around family involvement and parental support. There absolutely are youth that need stronger parental involvement and supports. And we as a court are very much focused on, we ask all the time in our meetings internally, what percent of our work is with parents? Everyone says 100% of our work is with parents.
Mm.
And so naming that, it becomes a mistake to paint all youth with some broad brush and assume they don't have parental involvement, that they are not attending school, because those things are misconceptions. I want to kind of also refocus around our work at the juvenile court is the majority of that work is child welfare work. Everyone within the court knows 75% of our case types and our work at the court is child welfare work, which we know can have a link to being justice involved. And so our ability to really do a thorough job with our families that come in contact with the court on the child welfare side really has an impact on the youth that will become justice involved. And then naming that, it requires a multi-system approach.
Mhm.
Youth did not come into our system independent of their families, independent of the school system, independent of our medical care system. And naming that, the misconception is that the court by itself will solve all problems for all people. That's not the case. We know that we as a community are responsible for the outcomes of our children. And so we're going to need a multi-system approach to how we work with children and families.
Okay, and then I'd like to also for you to talk about some of the wraparound services for the families. For example, um, like mental health. Are there opportunities for the family as a whole to get some type of support or counseling, and some other services that you all offer?
And so, one of the things that we've been working on over the last 23 months of this administration is really shoring up services and programs for families. And naming, we did not inherit a robust portfolio of those. And so we're actually in our third quarter of taking in new community stakeholders and having local organizations that do that work with families and children apply to work in partnership with the court to service families. And it's across an array, and that's everything from programs that are completely holistic, that can take in youth and do trauma informed work, and wrap around them, to pieces that are the mental health piece, the substance abuse, and those things that we might have to put multiple things together to create the right supports. And naming that, we're not done. We need many, many more resources. And the main area we're really lacking are those family supports. When we put out our call to the community to bring services into the court, we will get a ton of organizations that are youth serving, but naming 75% of our work is with families, and we need more services that cater to adults that can provide supports, not even just in workforce development, but in those mental health, in the trauma informed care practices, and really help even with parenting. And right, and that's a big initiative that we've taken on recently, is bringing in more providers that can provide parenting classes, because everyone who has children know they did not come with a manual, and there are continued challenges that can arise as you're parenting, and you need a network and a community that supports you in that.
Also, I'm involved with restorative justice program with juvenile court. Can you talk a little bit about that? If there um, parents out there and you want your children involved, you can sign up. But Stephanie, can you talk about the restorative justice component of juvenile court?
And so I will say, for us, restorative justice is really more of a philosophy, right? And so naming that we have partners like Rafa Institute that is going to be doing victim-centered work around restorative justice. But it's really the philosophy of, part of our work with youth who are justice involved is how can we restore them to the community? How can we have a youth take or learn accountability for harm they may have caused in the community? And then how can they be restored and feel like a full contributor to our community and feel connected? And so, for us, that's really a philosophical position. And it's the way in which we're approaching work so that we can have youth, because of course Memphis has, and Shelby County has the highest percentage of disconnected youth. That's youth that are not in school and not in the workforce, and that's in terms of youth all the way. If I use the term youth, I'm talking all the way up to 24. And so really figuring out ways that we can be innovative about bringing more opportunities to connect youth back to community and restore them if there has been an event where harm has been caused to someone or in some way to our community. How do we reconnect them?
Okay, thank you. And so have Stephanie and April, as well as Brian, have you all, collaborated in any way, or what is if not, is there an opportunity for collaboration among, between the city and maybe one of the programs, and as well as Stephanie, working with some of the nonprofits that April's working with?
So, of course, Brian and I have connected in terms of where there are opportunities for us to really create collaboration, naming that the court did not have a robust workforce development arm, and trying to figure out where are there ways we can connect in that way. We have not connected with April yet, and I'm sure April has a plethora of resources that we could tap into as we're in the third quarter of our community stakeholder application, and we're looking for more resources that can help serve our population, specifically things that will work for adults. So I'll defer to April or Brian on other ways we could collaborate.
You can go ahead, April, if you want to add anything to that.
Well, no, I'm very excited at the opportunity to connect Stephanie and, of course, Brian.
Yeah, and one thing I just want to add to that with Dr. Hill, I mean, we've been on multiple panels together on different occasions, but I think one thing that really stands out to me about Dr. Hill and the collaborative work is some things we've done in 38109. 38109, especially the southwest side, is experience high level of gun violence in the community. And one thing we need to make sure that we do is have a presence in the community, a strong presence, but also a relevant presence. I know Dr. Watkins at Mount Vernon Baptist Church does a phenomenal job in the community. And we've seen the area school principals in that area step up as well. So from a city, and I do know a county standpoint as well, there's been joint effort work in collaboration with Dr. Hill and Juvenile Court in that particular area as well.
And one other thing I'll add to that is we are also an employee partner. And so ordinarily we did not this summer because, of course, we have been out of our building since April, but we ordinarily do host students at the court that work with us through the employee program.
Oh, great. Okay, and this is for Brian because, there's a lot of construction, going on in Memphis and Shelby County. There's opportunities for, and I know your background is in vocational and CTE and all that. And I was wondering if there's opportunities for our young people to get some type of apprenticeship opportunities. Because I was thinking, and maybe we could discuss this later, but I know the contracts that we, approve on the commission level, I would like to write in that there needs to be like 10% of, or X amount, a percentage of these positions assigned for young people to obtain some type of skill set, like an apprenticeship program. And so I'm thinking about writing that to a resolution. So I was just wondering, is that something that you have thought about or considering or would consider?
No, I'm smiling because actually that's in the works. We're doing that now. This is interesting because, for years we've heard the mantra, every student college bound. We know that's not the case anymore.
Right.
And our philosophy in this office is you can be bound to entrepreneurship, You can be bound to employment. You can be bound to education. You can be bound to enlistment, but you need to be bound somewhere. So what we're doing to focus on that entrepreneurial spirit and employment is have a lot more programs through the city that we're working on that focus just that. So I'll give you an example, and this just shows you the passion of the work. Is that I had a gentleman, total stranger, reach out to me on LinkedIn, who's recently relocated to Memphis, who has some ties in construction. So he met with myself and our COO. We're in talks about apprenticeship programs now and what that can look like, bringing young people into this program and having direct placement in the workforce, whether it's the county, whether it's the city, or whether it's a direct placement in a particular company. And that currently right now does not exist. It does from a technical aspect. If you go to Delta Tech or more School of Technology, yes. But to have more boots on the ground programs meeting young people where they are, that's in the works right now. We're very proud to be tackling that.
Okay, so we say it's in the works. So is that something maybe next summer there's an opportunity for apprenticeship programs?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, summer. Actually, yes. We've had a series of meetings. So once we solidify and go through the proper protocols, you can see that as early as then.
That's great. Okay. And so again, I'll reach out to the city councilman and maybe, together we can work on some type of resolution that requires, that vendors, use X amount of young people in employment, because the only way they're going to get experience, with some of these skill sets is actually do it. Some people learn through tactile, by doing. And so that's great. I love that. We're going to go on. And I was mentioning to my students the other day that welders start off making $30 an hour. And if you're an underwater welder, it's $300 an hour. So I was like, in my next life. Let's see. This is back for April. What specific services do local nonprofits provide to support low-income families with housing insecurity? For example, at White Station High School, where I teach, we've already identified 100 unhoused families.
Oh, wow, that's fantastic. There are so many organizations in Shelby County providing resources around housing insecurities. So one resource that I would like to drop before we get into the conversation is livegivemidsouth.org. And it's a platform through the Community Foundation of Greater Memphis. And it just houses hundreds and hundreds of nonprofits. And they've already done the work similar to what we were talking about earlier. So you can get information on the nonprofit status, their mission, the people behind the organization on the staff and board, their financials, their background and their history. And then they categorize it by areas of interest. So if you're looking for an organization that supports housing or have resources, that's a really good place to start, livegivemidsouth.org. But we have some incredible organizations out here, especially organizations like United Housing that provides information for families that are looking to buy a home, but they don't know anything about home buyer education. And so not only are they providing affordable housing, but their home buyer education, they're hand holding them through the entire process and making sure that their homes are well maintained. So they're building and rehabbing. Or if you're looking at families that may be currently experiencing being dishoused, we have organizations like Room in the Inn that provides temporary housing, but they also provide that wraparound service for families to come in to not only have temporary housing, but what do I need to do to have gainful employment? What do I need to do to make sure that my children have access to a school in the neighborhood, since I'm not in a specific district? But there are so many different organizations in Memphis that's providing the services, whether you need temporary housing, home buyer education, financial assistance, like Rise Memphis. They have this wonderful Save Up program for families who need to have housing assistance or just down payment assistance. Mm-hmm. So as much as the family saves, Rise Memphis supports them to have a matching grant for that.
Okay, this question is for anyone, and again, by me being in the classroom, it's like a microcosm of what's going on in society. And a lot of my students, do not have an opportunity to get driving experience, and so transportation is a huge issue. And so, what nonprofits or programs are available? Number one, to offer our young people opportunity to get driver's education and then also experience. And then number two is for transportation, because so many of our young people who want to participate in activities and things of that nature can't, because a lot of them come from single family homes, and the parent, the mother, or whomever the caregiver is, working two jobs. So what transportation opportunities are there for our young people? Don't everybody jump in at one time.
I'll jump in on that one. So the first thing is that we a lot of our summer programs we ran, and you're right. The number one gap for young people not being able to participate is the lack of transportation. And so the camps I talked about earlier that we did in 3109, we actually had charter buses. I'm not talking, as the kids say, the big cheese yellow bus. We had professional coach buses that took the young people out of their neighborhood. We took them to City Hall. We took them to county government. They went to different companies. They met downtown businesses. And so that's one thing we learned this summer is that we have to be very strategic in allocating to get young people to programs because, again, we all know that exposure is the key. But again, the only way you can expose is to make sure you have a viable resource to get them there. One other thing we did too, we bought over 2,000 bus passes for MATA. And so employ was mentioned earlier. So a lot of our young people this summer, we were able to give a bus pass. So we just didn't depend on the stipend they got for working through employ. In addition to, we gave them a bus pass to get to their location. Now, as far as driver education, that's something we discussed as part of our curriculum. How do we integrate that? But it's still a work in progress. But what we're doing from a financial standpoint, because you can have a driver's license, but still not have money to buy a car. So we're focused on the financial literacy aspect through Simmons Bank is working with us, and also First Horizon to teach young people around the importance of saving and how to save money in order to, and good credit in order to buy a car. So that's some of the things we're working on in our office.
Okay. And Stephanie, is that something that you're working on with the Just Involve Youth as well?
So you were a little bit on a different end of the spectrum, right? Because we're the place
Yeah.
where if a youth gets a ticket, then you
Right.
then
Right.
you become involved with the court. But I will say, even just broadening to beyond the challenge that transportation is for youth. I mean, I would say it's one of the top issues in our city. Naming that if you can't get from home to work, or if you have to use ride sharing to get there, and you're using part of your income just to be able to get in a Lyft or get into Uber, that's very impactful on your family. I will say, along those lines is we also recognize that while we love MATA and we definitely want to see some innovation there, that there are some real challenges with our city transportation, and that because our detention facility was separated from the court, we saw very quickly that even for parents being able to get from our facility to detention, or detention to the court where cases are heard, is a real challenge. It's 20 miles away, and we had some of our staff do an experiment and attempt to take the bus to get there, and it was about 3 hours one way. And so just naming that, that was a challenge we recognized very early on, and we're still trying to work through what are some viable solutions to be able to help families be able to navigate from our court to our detention facility, and just create broader access.
Okay. Oh, wow. Elizabeth, United Way driving the dream. I love that. For Uber passes to help clients. Um, and also, I just want to mention this. When I ask my students, for example, I teach 12th graders, how many of you all have driver's license? You'd be surprised how many students are driving without driver's license. And this is a story I tell quite a bit. There was a young man, he missed a lot of my classes, and I was, on him. So why are you missing like weeks at a time? He was like, Miss Sugarman, I take a bus to go take the DMV, and then I keep failing the test. And so I said, really? And so then he was saying that now he's driving. So, well, great. You got your driver's license. No, but I'm driving. I have to drive because I got to go to work. I got to help my family. And so then he was missing, 2 or 3 more weeks. I said, what's going on now? He was like, now I had to go to court. I said, why'd you go to court? Because I was driving without a license. So now my license will be revoked. And so I said, I understand. You don't have a license. You're driving because you have to, but your license revoked. So now he's entangled in the system. He said, yeah, whenever I get a license, they'll be revoked. And so, the entanglement, that when you're young, it can, it's going to lead over to a life of being trapped in poverty. And this is a young man, he's trying to do the right thing, trying to help support his family. Now he's entangled in the court system. And so, I'm just thinking out loud, what can we do as a community, as a commissioner, or as a community, nonprofits? What can we do to help our young people to, gain their, independence with a driver's license,
I think you're making a great point, Erika, and I think that's a way where maybe the three of us can step off from this panel discussion and look for a way to really collaborate, right, between Brian, April, and the court. Because, of course, like I said, we're on the end where we know exactly who you're talking about, because they would come through our court system where they are driving without a license, and they would then be referred to our court. And so this is a real opportunity for all of us to collaborate around how do we create meaningful pathways for youth to be able to become a licensed driver, to be able to have access to transportation. And so I think that's a really great opportunity for the three of us, like a call to action from this panel tonight.
Okay, great. And then I want to move now to culturally competence. I spoke with the superintendent a few weeks ago, and she was talking about how she's implementing the Memphis 13 curriculum with the first 13 students who integrated the Memphis city schools, and because it's not being taught. And then she said, well, when you all came in, it was a group of us, she thought we were going to talk about, we want to implement Memphis history like they did in Detroit. I was like, that's even better. So my question becomes, in your, as far as nonprofit or juvenile court or with your city programs, is there opportunity to educate families about our culture, here in Memphis or in general? Because a lot of times, we as a people, Black people, we don't see ourselves in the literature, think positive things, that the kids are reading, or, even parents, helping educate parents about, our culture and being culturally competent.
Yes, for us, that's very important for nonprofits to be impactful in their communities. They have to have a high level of cultural competency. We hear all the time from community members about not being served at a nonprofit because of something as simple as wearing a bonnet, but just understanding cultural competency, at all levels of the nonprofit, whether it's the executive director, program staff, or board of directors. You can't make impact if you can't connect with the nonprofits. One of the things that I really admire about Shelby County is the new district connectors, where each district has a staff person embedded in the community, where they're going and not only talking to the nonprofits, but they're connecting them with the communities. They're finding seamless ways for nonprofits to connect with and understand businesses as well, who the community are and what their needs are. So in order to be culturally competent, you have to understand and also respect the culture of each community. We talk about the Memphis culture, but each community has its own different culture. Hickory Hill is going to be different from Orange Mound. Orange Mound is going to be different from North Memphis, and they're definitely going to be different from South Memphis. So having that on staff, especially for nonprofits, it has to start at home. Having representatives not only on your board, but from your staff. If you are serving youth in your community, Are you willing to have a youth from that community that has graduated, gone to school, or just still connected to the community, serve not only as a volunteer, but hire them as a staff because they have that direct connection?
Okay, thank you. Anybody else want to add anything before we go on?
Yeah, I was going to say, I think April hit it directly on the head. Of course, based on the families that we are working with and the youth that we're working with, 100%. If you cannot connect, you cannot make it relevant, you cannot honor and respect the culture in which someone is coming to you, then it makes it very, very difficult to really be supportive, to have them engage in your program and really get to the outcomes that we're looking for. And so for us, we're absolutely trying to maximize outcomes for families and for youth. And we have to be thinking about how can we approach this from a standpoint where we are being culturally competent, and that is also really broad too, wanting to make sure that we even think about our Spanish speaking community. We actually had we have a partnership with Literacy Mid-South, and we had a book vending machine, and when they came to install it, we kind of got chastised around like, hey, all your signage needs to be dual language, and
Yeah.
all the things that we really need to be thinking about that do impact how our community is able to engage with us as a court. So it's absolutely something that we are, working toward, be at the forefront of our work directly to families and children.
That's a very good point. Yes. And then also, yes, the Hispanic community, but also the deaf and hard of hearing community, because we don't have enough interpreters in our schools. And so, because at White Station, we are a magnet for the deaf and hard of hearing community because they come from the tri-state area, and so they don't. There's a lack of interpreters. There's a lack of just the integration in the community, and so I was wondering if, for example, anybody has thought about how we can get the deaf and hard of hearing community on board with some of these programs, because a lot of times they're looking for resources and things of that nature, and sometimes a lot of times there may be a whole family. The parent may also be deaf and hard of hearing too. So how to reach that community?
So I can touch on that briefly. One of the programs we offer is called I Am Included, which deals with high performing students, low performing deaf students as well. So we have at least 20 deaf students in that program, and also vision impaired. So that program has been around about a year and a half. And again, just the exposure we've seen. We partner with the school in Nashville, School of the Blind and Deaf, where a lot of those students go to. But it's just to me about awareness and educating people on what's available, and making sure that we're inclusive and being intentional about being inclusive. And that's what we've done. And we've seen a growth in that program as well as far as participants.
So I would like to challenge you, Brian,
Mhm.
to include. We have a huge deaf and hard of hearing population, White Station High School. They come from, and to bring them on board. I mean, I don't say, set aside any, but to just really reach out to that community, because
Absolutely.
I mean, people have like this idea, this misconception, about the deaf and hard of hearing. They have all kinds of capabilities, and one thing I'm going to say real quickly is that one student in particular stands out because he wanted to join the military, but because that he was deaf, he could not. And so and there's not as many opportunities, should I say? And I would love for one of your programs, employ a boss, to really reach out to that particular community, because um, and like I said, there's not enough interpreters. And I address this year after year to the board. I said, how would you like if your child could not hear, did not have an interpreter, and how closed that world must seem to that child and isolating, And so I have a really special heart for this community. So if you could reach out, I would love that.
We'll make that happen.
Thank you. Okay.
I would
Um,
also like to make a plug for Deaf Connect of the Mid-South. It's a wonderful resources for organizations that need affordable interpreters that are usually available with 24-hour notice.
there's another also organization, but I'm gonna say this: because of the low wages that the Memphis Shelby County schools are paying our interpreters. A lot of them are leaving to go to Deaf Connect or to government jobs. And
Yes.
so, and so that's another ask I have the superintendent is to make sign language a language so all kids can learn sign language. Um, and so again, we have a shortage. And Deaf Connect, I love Deaf Connect. I know Miss Wilson's still there. She used to work at White Station High School, but they're a wonderful organization. Thank you for that. Let's see. What are the best practices for involving families in the rehabilitation and reintegration process of justice involved youth? When kids come out, back into the classroom, shall I say, they just feel, I don't know, they fall behind, or they. How as a teacher, how as a community, how can we help these young people to reconnect and re-engage in their schools?
I think one of the most important things for all human beings is not to view people as the worst thing they've ever done or the worst day they've ever had. And really to be inclusive. I mean, I love how this conversation has really shifted to the idea of being inclusive. And,
Mhm.
how do you have a member of our community feel like you are wanted, you are needed, and you are accepted? And I think there can be some stigma, especially for youth, in naming that the majority of our youth don't actually go into detention. They may receive a summons or become justice involved youth in a way where they never touch detention. Whether you're that youth or whether a youth that does actually go into detention for some time, naming that you should still be welcomed back into the community. You should still be welcomed back into your school and given an opportunity to grow and thrive, and have access to services, resources, and programs. And the idea of, we need an environment that doesn't throw children away, doesn't
Right,
throw their parents away,
right,
and really, wraps around a family, naming that, the skills that you don't have, the resources you don't have, should not be used as a bludgeon against you. We should
mhm,
be a community that fills in those gaps and wraps around you. And if it takes 10 service providers to get you there, then we find 10 service providers to get you there. We should not constantly push people down based on what they don't know and what they don't have. And so, that is absolutely a mandate of the court, is no matter what circumstances your family is encountering, we are working to be the family empowerment center for the county, where we have the services, the referral, the wherewithal to get your family to be whole in whatever definition of family that is. And the
right,
same in terms of our youth. And it's beautiful that you have youth that are returning to you from detention, because all youth don't have that opportunity. Because I'm going to say sometimes principals have great discretion to do things that aren't policy but practice, and may not allow youth to come back, and youth may be funneled into alternative schools. And some of the
mhm,
alternative schools, are great places where youth can be reconnected and they can fill in some of the gaps. But at the same time, if you would like to return to your home school because it puts a strain on your family to go to an alternative school, you should have that opportunity and you should be welcome back in the community. And the idea that when people need more attention, more love and support, we should give it to them, not
right,
isolate them.
right. Okay. Um, and what strategies can schools implement to foster supportive environment for at-risk youth and their families?
I think that same thing, and I'll defer
Okay.
to April or Brian to add on, but being inclusive, being a place that recognizes we may be the place where you get the love, the support, the skills that you need, in partnership with the parent or independent of the parent. I'll defer to.
No, just to kind of add a little more color to that, I think the biggest thing is that we have to be present in those communities. One thing Mayor Young charged us with was that you will not be an office person. You will be in the community. He said, I expect, I'm talking, he said this to chiefs and directors.
Mhm.
I fully expect you and will hold you accountable to being in the nodes of the community. And I heard something recently over the weekend. I think it was Dr. Marcus Crosby said, how can you be a good shepherd if you don't smell like the sheep? And so if we're not out there amongst the people, we don't know their needs, but more importantly, we don't have resources for them to meet them where they are, we're not doing our jobs. And so
Right.
that's why when I started at the top of the call, I talked about, hey, we have programs that are not GPA based anymore because again, we want to meet young people where they are, pay them an incentive, and the objective is to tear them up to the next level. I was on Dr. Fagan's transition team, and I truly understand the direction the district wants to move in, but it takes many hands
Right.
to get that city and county and put aside titles and be inclusive, but again, meet people where they are. And that's one thing this administration is committed to, is making sure we do that and people see we're there, but more importantly, know why we're there, and that's to make a difference.
And so, to your point, Brian, I remember when Mayor Young went out into the community and he was reaching, individuals who were just above youth, who were in gangs or what have you. And he was criticized by some, but I was like, that's exactly where he needs to be, you
Right.
know? That's exactly, and I was like, kudos to you.
Yeah, and we were at those meetings, and really, to hear those gang members and leaders say is that, when you look at you on TV, and that's speaking of all of us, we have on suits, but to know that we are from those very areas, and we have a passion, and we have not forgotten, but we need your help because, again, like I told at one of those gang meetings, I told a leader, I said, the young people will listen to you faster than me because of what you're offering. I said, but also when you look at city government, I said, the streets are hiring every day without experience. And that's the same thing we need to be doing, but teaching them how to get the experience and teaching them the right way so they can be productive Memphians and help carry our city forward and county.
Are there resources available, for example, to help young people? For example, if you want to go to like a vocational school, like you mentioned, is it Memphis Tech or whatever, TCAT or what have you, you have to fill out the FAFSA, you have to do this, that, and the other. And that can be a barrier itself. And so are there any programs that, for example, go into the schools or go to where kids are, young people, and help them navigate the system in order to fill out the FAFSA and all those kind of things, so they can get the resources, so they can go on to these vocational schools or where have you.
Yeah, they're actually, and one thing, I'm glad you brought that up because one thing that I talked on earlier was amount of young people we have in Memphis and Shelby County, which is 270,000. These offices on this call cannot service all 270,000, but you have a lot of nonprofits out there who are doing the work. And so, like what you said, I remember one particular group, they teach something, the name escapes me right now, but there are services where retirees, retired educators, and people who work post-secondary, they offer workshops that do those things. I just thought of it. One is a educational sorority. Cannot think of their name, but they do that to teach young people how to fill out the paperwork because, again, that can be discouraging and end up being a deterrent because they don't understand how to do it. So there are resources, but we just need to make sure that we tap in and we communicate those resources through our respective outlets on our websites because, again, we cannot do the work alone.
April, do you know of any nonprofits that can help the young people fill out those FAFSA? And also, I'm going to say this: there's a large to being inclusive again, Hispanic population who, children want to go, but they can't help their children through that process. So do you know of any organizations or nonprofits that can help young people fill out these forms or, be able to communicate with the kids? And if not, could you, help me navigate all through all these nonprofits and find some? Because I would love to bring them to not only my school and my district, but the one I teach at as well.
Well, I'm trying to think of specifically organizations that help with the FAFSA, but one organization that I'm really excited about is the Collective Blueprint. And they partner with local nonprofits to ensure that youth can get into the workforce quickly and make really, really good money. One of their partnerships is with Code Crew. And they go through this program where they receive a stipend while they're going through the program and learning how to code. And after that, they partner with major companies to get the youth employed. And these are usually opportunity youth between the ages of 16 and 24. So there's no cost for organizations for youth to go through the program, but they still have money in their pocket because we know that's one thing that challenges youth. You can be in school, but you still need money to survive. That campus food, you miss cafeteria sometimes, but the Collective Blueprint is a great resource.
Okay. I'll reach out to them. Thank you. And then let's see. And what innovative approaches have nonprofits implemented to promote economic empowerment among families? So, do you know of any creative or ways that nonprofits have used different types of programs to promote economic empowerment among families?
Well,
April?
Brian kind of touched on this earlier, but there are several nonprofits that's really taken the approach to youth entrepreneurship, just really encouraging youth to monetize their gifts. You know, we have people in the community that's doing things like they're excellent braiders, or they're doing nails. They're very creative in painting. So there's organizations like Beautiful Spirited Women that teach young girls know how to not only monetize their gifts, but how to actually run a business, how to get insurance for your business, know how to save up money, how to go through the forms and the paperwork. And you have organizations like we talked about the Collective Blueprint, Memphis Artists for Change, but there's several organizations that's really focusing on entrepreneurship. And then we have, organizations like The Work and Binghamton Community Development Corporations that also encourages youth to come in, get a skill or trade within months versus years, and get into the workforce. And they do welding. They have this great program where they recycled, Binghamton did, they recycled all of the city's lights after the city changed over to the LED lights. Binghamton was the one that recycled all of those lights and reused all of those materials for other parts of their programming. And
Wow.
they bring in youth. And the training, I think, is maybe 3 months. And they have gainful employment after that time.
Wow, that's impressive. And the last questions from the audience. What resources are available for parents needing assistance with their child when it comes to behavior support?
I can answer that question. And so, depending on the age of the youth that you're talking about, if you're talking about a youth that maybe is 12 years old or in that teenage range, I would encourage you to reach out to the Youth and Family Resource Center that is operated by the county. They have a variety of resources there. They're able to do assessments for the youth. I would say we would be a secondary, because we do have a staff that will kind of talk through what the situation is with the youth and help direct to resources. But again, of course, if the court is really a place of last resort. And we really do want to use our resources for families that are in the most dire need. But those are two opportunities. You can reach out to the Youth and Family Resources Center that's operated by the county. And we can add the website for the Youth and Family Resource Center. Or you can reach out to the court directly for some referral to services or resources. I was going to add one thing on the family empowerment. A innovative economic opportunity is an organization called Equity to Prosperity, and it was created by Eric Harris, and they've been operating for a little over a year now, and it's really a basic income pilot. And so it's out here in 38109, and they're partnered with King and Queens Daycare. And so for families that enroll their child into that daycare, into that program, they receive a monthly stipend, and it's a stipend that there's no requirements attached. They can use the stipend however they would like to support their family. And so that's a really innovative way where through the connection with this daycare, a parent can enroll in that program and receive a stipend every single month to support their family.
I love that. That's great. Okay. So now I would like for each of my panelists, you have 1 minute for closing remarks, and I'm going to start with April.
Well, I want to throw out one more resource for parents and people to connect with. Shelby County and United Way of the Mid-South have these kiosks in different community centers where you can go in and look up different resources, and you can go through the entire process of connecting with the nonprofit, learning all about what services they provide. You can make appointments, and it's just a wonderful resource that just launched. So you can go Hickory Hill Community Center in the district. It is a great place to start, but I think they are in 10 community centers across Memphis. So it is a wonderful resource for parents to not only see what's available, but take the steps to connect with the organization that provides the service.
Thank you. Okay. And any closing remarks, April?
Respect the parents. We have some dynamic parents in Shelby County they're doing their best. I love the way Stephanie phrased it. Don't judge anyone by their worst day or the worst thing that they've ever done, because there are so many things that some of us just didn't get caught for, but yet we're still able to integrate into society. So, and if we look at the humanity in all of our youth and all of our parents.
Thank you so much. And Brian?
Yeah, I just want to say I want to thank you again for this awesome program. I'm getting text messages from people that are watching now, but this is needed because, again, if you hold a public office or you are a public servant, your job is to do just that. And I appreciate this platform. The last thing I'll say is just really to challenge the viewers because, yeah, we're talking about parents, but think about how many young people don't have parents or who don't have a role model. Big brothers, big sisters is going away. And so, what other organizations can you partner with, whether it's faith-based or organization to mentor youth? Because again, without mentorship, we're lost and our young people need you. So I would encourage you, don't be an armchair quarterback, get off the chair, get in the field and help us with our young people because they are our future. Thank you.
Thank you. And Stephanie?
Again, I just would like to say we as a community are responsible for the outcomes of our children, and it is going to take a collective effort. We really recognize that there's a gap in resources for adults and for parents. If you have an organization that can provide parenting classes, mental health support, trauma informed care, opportunities for adults and parents, that is one of our biggest gaps in naming, especially when you talk about Black and Brown men and opportunities for them. One of the programs we always shout out is Affirm, because they are specifically targeting work with men and thinking about how, as a community, to Brian's point, can we make families whole, and families whole in a broader sense, because what our definition of family is has changed so much, that how can we create a larger family unit that really helps support our community thrive, both parents and families. So again, our community stakeholder process, I think we dropped the link to judgesugarman.com. We are in the last couple of days of our third quarter application process to bring in new community stakeholders. We need more resources for adults, especially resources that are designed to support men.
Love that. And as the saying goes, it takes a village to raise a child. And I just, want to commend all of you all for the work that you do. My heart goes out to the families and our youth. As a teacher for 26 years, I'm going to try to hang in there another 5 more years, but our children, our families, they need all of our support. So thank you for your work. Thank you so much. And for the listening audience, thank you for joining us. And next month, we're going to focus on Hispanic heritage on September 17th. Thank you all, and thank you for listening in. Bye-bye.